The dust settled on the lonely trail as Abigail Foster clutched her 6-month-old daughter tighter against her chest, the child's soft whimpers blending with the howling wind. 3 days alone on the road to nowhere, 3 days since she'd been told no decent establishment in Copper Creek would hire a young widow with a baby in tow. They called her damaged goods as if little Sarah's innocent existence somehow diminished Abigail's worth. Colorado Territory, 1874. The unforgiving landscape mirrored Abigail's circumstances, harsh, unpredictable, and seemingly impossible to navigate alone. Yet she pressed forward, one weary step after another. Because turning back wasn't an option, not when Copper Creek held nothing but whispers and judgment, not when the memory of her late husband's gambling debts still haunted her. "Just a little farther, my sweet girl," she murmured into Sarah's downy hair. "We'll find Meadow Springs by nightfall." Meadow Springs was little more than a rumor, a settlement 20 miles west that some travelers had mentioned might be more forgiving to a woman in her circumstances. Abigail's feet ached inside her worn boots, and her arms burned from holding Sarah for so long. But stopping wasn't an option, with the sun already beginning its descent behind the distant mountains. The distant thunder of hoofbeats made her heart leap into her throat. Out here, alone on the trail, riders could mean salvation, or something far more sinister. Abigail moved quickly to the side of the trail, ducking partially behind a large boulder. She rocked Sarah gently, praying the child wouldn't cry out. 3 riders appeared over the ridge, their silhouettes dark against the amber sky. Abigail held her breath. They were slowing down. They'd spotted her. "Madam," the leader's deep voice carried across the distance between them. "You all right out here?" Abigail hesitated, calculating her options. She had nowhere to run with Sarah in her arms, and nightfall in the wilderness would be a death sentence for them both. "Just passing through," she called back, trying to keep the fear from her voice. The lead rider approached slowly, hands visible on his reins to show he meant no harm. As he drew closer, Abigail could make out his features, strong jaw shadowed with stubble, eyes the color of the summer sky, and a well-worn Stetson that had seen its share of sun and rain. He wasn't much older than her, 22 years, perhaps 26 or 27 at most. "Name's Adam Xavier," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "These are my ranch hands, Tom and Hank. Meadow Springs is still 8 miles out, and you won't make it before dark." His gaze moved to Sarah, who had quieted and was staring at the stranger with wide, curious eyes. "That's no place for a little one at night." "I appreciate your concern, Mr. Xavier, but we'll manage," Abigail replied, even as her aching legs betrayed her conviction. Adam Xavier dismounted with a fluid grace that spoke of years in the saddle. He approached slowly, maintaining a respectful distance. "Our ranch is just over that rise. My sister Mary lives there too. We've got a spare room where you and your child could rest for the night. Continue your journey tomorrow, if you wish." The sincerity in his eyes caught Abigail off guard. Since her husband's death, men looked at her with either pity or something far less honorable. Adam Xavier's gaze held neither just simple human decency. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. One of the ranch hands, an older man with graying temples, chuckled. "Madam, if Adam Xavier wanted to cause trouble, he wouldn't have brought along 2 witnesses, one being the biggest gossip in 3 counties. He nodded toward the third rider, who had the good grace to look offended. "Tom speaks the truth, though not very politely," Adam said with a slight smile. "I'm offering shelter for the night, nothing more. First sign of daylight, we can escort you to Meadow Springs, if that's still your destination." Sarah began to fuss, a sure sign that hunger was setting in. Abigail had precious little milk left in her canteen to mix with the dwindling supply of formula. The thought of a proper kitchen, even for one night, was too tempting to refuse. "Very well, Mr. Xavier. We accept your hospitality for tonight." Adam nodded, relief evident in his expression. "May I ask your name, madam?" "Abigail Foster. And this is my daughter, Sarah." Adam approached his horse and reached into his saddlebag, pulling out a blanket. "Here, let me make a sling for you. It'll be easier to ride with the little one." His consideration surprised her. Most men she'd encountered viewed Sarah as an inconvenience at best. Adam fashioned the blanket into a makeshift carrier that would secure Sarah to Abigail's chest while riding. You seem practiced at this, Abigail remarked as he worked. A shadow passed over Adam's features. Had a younger sister once. Helped my ma with her a lot. The past tense spoke volumes of loss, but Adam didn't elaborate. Instead, he helped Abigail secure Sarah in the sling, and then offered his hand to assist her onto his horse. He would walk alongside, he explained, leading the animal himself to ensure they moved at a safe pace. The Xavier Ranch came into view just as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. It wasn't as grand as some of the spreads Abigail had seen, but it was substantial. A main house built of sturdy logs with a wide front porch, a large barn, several outbuildings, and corrals filled with horses and cattle. Smoke curled from the chimney, promising warmth inside. As they approached, a woman emerged from the house, wiping her hands on her apron. She had the same striking blue eyes as Adam, though her hair was a shade darker than his sun-bleached brown. "Mary!" Adam called out. "We have guests for the night." Mary Xavier's eyes widened at the sight of Abigail and Sarah, but her surprise quickly transformed into a welcoming smile. "Well, it's about time Adam brought home something other than stray dogs," she said, with a warmth that immediately put Abigail at ease. Come in, supper's almost ready, and you both look like you could use a hot meal." The inside of the Xavier home was modest but comfortable, with handcrafted furniture and colorful quilts that spoke of care and attention. A large hearth dominated the main room, casting flickering light across the wooden floors. Mary quickly ushered Abigail to a rocking chair near the fire. "Let me take your things," she offered, helping Abigail remove her dusty coat while carefully avoiding disturbing Sarah. "Poor little dear must be exhausted." "And hungry," Abigail admitted. "I've been rationing her formula. We left Copper Creek rather abruptly." Understanding crossed Mary's face. "I've got fresh cow's milk and some oatmeal that can be made into a suitable meal for her. How old is she?" 6 months. Perfect age for a bit of oatmeal mixed in. I'll get that started right away." Adam had disappeared into what Abigail assumed was his room, returning without his hat and coat, his hair slightly damp from washing. He carried a small wooden cradle, which he set near Abigail's chair. "This was mine when I was small," he explained, somewhat self-consciously. "Mary keeps it polished up, though it hasn't seen use in many years." Abigail gently placed Sarah in the cradle, the child's eyes already drooping with exhaustion. "Thank you. This is very kind." "It's nothing," Adam replied, though the care with which he'd carried the cradle suggested otherwise. Over a supper of venison stew, freshly baked bread, and apple preserves, Abigail found herself sharing more of her story than she'd intended. How she'd married James Foster when she was just 18, how his charm had masked a fondness for gambling and whiskey, and how his death in a saloon brawl had left her with nothing but debts and a child on the way. The banker in Copper Creek was a friend of James's, she explained, her spoon stirring the remnants of her stew. "He claimed James owed him money and that our home was collateral. I couldn't prove otherwise." "That's downright criminal," Mary said indignantly. "Didn't anyone stand up for you?" Abigail shook her head. "James wasn't well liked by the end, and once Sarah came," she glanced at her sleeping daughter. "Well, a young widow with a baby isn't exactly welcome in most establishments. I tried to find work, but no one would hire me." Adam had remained mostly silent throughout the meal, but now he spoke, his voice low with controlled anger. "People can be cruel when they don't understand the struggles of others. I heard Meadow Springs has a hotel looking for help," Abigail continued. "They say the owner is a widow herself, more understanding of difficult circumstances." Mary and Adam exchanged a glance that Abigail couldn't quite interpret. "Meadow Springs is growing," Adam acknowledged, "but it's still a rough place. The hotel you mentioned is decent enough, but the work is hard, and the pay barely covers living expenses." "I don't have the luxury of options, Mr. Xavier." "Adam, please," he corrected gently. "And there might be another option, if you're willing to consider it." Abigail tensed, waiting for the inevitable proposition that always seemed to follow when men offered options to women in her situation. "Mary could use help with the house and the bookkeeping," Adam continued, surprising her. "And I've been thinking of expanding the kitchen garden come spring. We could offer you room and board, plus a modest wage." "Adam Xavier, were you planning to discuss this with me first?" Mary asked, though her tone held more amusement than genuine reproach. I'm discussing it now, he replied with a small smile. Unless you object. Mary studied Abigail thoughtfully. I don't object to the idea itself. Heaven knows I could use another woman's company out here, but it should be Mrs. Foster's decision. Miss? Abigail corrected automatically. I never legally married James. He promised we would make it official, but... She trailed off, her cheeks burning with shame. To her surprise, neither Xavier's siblings seemed shocked by this revelation. All the more reason you shouldn't be forced into a situation where that fact could be used against you, Adam said simply. Our offer stands, Miss Foster. Stay as long as you wish, contribute what you can, and leave whenever you choose. The generosity overwhelmed her. Why would you do this for strangers? Because we've been strangers ourselves, Mary replied softly. This territory isn't kind to those without connections. You don't have to decide tonight, Adam added. Rest, think on it, and we can talk more in the morning. That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in weeks, with Sarah sleeping peacefully in the borrowed cradle, Abigail allowed herself to contemplate the unexpected turn of events. The Xaviers seemed genuine in their offer, but experience had taught her that kindness often came with hidden costs. Still, as she drifted off to sleep, the memory of Adam Xavier's respectful demeanor and Mary's warm welcome gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a very long time. Morning brought clarity in the form of Sarah's hungry cries and the smell of coffee and bacon wafting through the house. By the time Abigail had tended to her daughter and made herself presentable, Adam was already gone, Mary explained, out checking the herd with Tom and Hank. He's always up before dawn, Mary said, handing Abigail a cup of coffee. Says that's when the land speaks truest. Your brother seems different from most men I've encountered, Abigail ventured. Mary smiled. Adam's seen his share of hardship. Makes a person either harder or kinder. He chose the latter. She hesitated, then added, Our parents died when I was 14 and Adam was 18. Influenza. Adam could have sold this place, started fresh somewhere else. Instead, he took on the responsibility of the ranch and raising me. He raised you? As best he could, Mary said with affection. Made plenty of mistakes, but never once made me feel like a burden. That's just who he is. The day passed with Abigail helping Mary with household tasks, finding an easy rhythm together that made the work less labor and more companionship. Sarah proved to be a delightful distraction, cooing at Mary, and eventually being passed around to the ranch hands who stopped by the kitchen for lunch, each gruff man transforming into an awkward but gentle giant in the presence of the baby. Adam returned mid-afternoon, dust-covered and tired, but with a satisfaction that suggested a productive day. He made no mention of their conversation from the previous night, though Abigail caught him watching her and Sarah throughout dinner, his expression thoughtful. It was only after Mary had retired for the evening and Sarah was asleep that Abigail found herself alone with Adam on the front porch, the night sky a canopy of stars above them. I've been thinking about your offer, she said finally, breaking the comfortable silence. And? His voice was neutral, giving her the space to speak freely. It's very generous, but I can't help wondering why you'd extend it to someone you hardly know. Adam was quiet for so long that Abigail wondered if he'd heard her. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and measured. When I was 20, I was engaged to be married, he began, surprising her with this personal revelation. Elizabeth was her name. She was expecting our child. There was a raid on her family's homestead while I was away delivering cattle to Denver. By the time I returned, he paused, swallowing hard. I lost them both. I'm so sorry, Abigail whispered, understanding now the shadow she'd glimpsed yesterday. For a long time, I believed I was being punished, Adam continued, for not being there, for putting business before family. Took me years to realize that thinking was just another form of selfishness. Bad things happen, and rarely is it about us at all. He looked directly at her then, his eyes reflecting the starlight. When I saw you on that trail with your daughter, I didn't see someone needing charity. I saw courage, determination, the very things this land demands of those who wish to make a life here. His honesty left her momentarily speechless. I'm afraid I'll disappoint your high opinion of me, she finally managed. I'm not particularly brave, just desperate. Sometimes they're the same thing. Adam smiled slightly. So, will you stay? At least until you decide what you truly want? Abigail considered all the factors, the security of a roof over Sarah's head, the kindness of the Xaviers, the opportunity to work for her, keep with dignity. Yes, she decided, we'll stay, at least for a while. Adam's relief was palpable. Good, that's good. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable pattern. Abigail took over much of the household management, freeing Mary to pursue her interests in medicinal herbs and midwifery skills she'd been developing through correspondence with a doctor in Denver. Adam was often out from sunrise to sunset, the demands of the ranch never ending, but evenings found the four of them, Abigail, Sarah, Adam, and Mary, gathered around the table or the hearth, forming bonds that grew stronger with each passing day. Sarah thrived in this environment, beginning to crawl and babbling constantly. She showed particular delight whenever Adam entered a room, his deep voice eliciting squeals of happiness that never failed to make the stoic rancher smile. Abigail tried not to read too much into Sarah's attachment to Adam or her own growing awareness of him as more than just her benefactor. She noticed the way his hands, rough from ranch work, became impossibly gentle when handling Sarah, how his gaze often lingered on Abigail when he thought she wasn't looking, how he always made sure to bring back a small gift for Sarah whenever he made the trip into Meadow Springs, a colorful ribbon, a carved wooden animal, once even a tiny pair of soft leather boots he'd commissioned from the town's cobbler. It was on one such return from town, nearly 3 months after Abigail and Sarah's arrival at the Xavier Ranch, that the fragile piece of their existence was threatened. Adam burst through the door, his expression grim. "Abigail, we need to talk." Mary, sensing the seriousness in her brother's tone, immediately scooped up Sarah. "I'll take this little one outside to see the new calves." Once they were alone, Adam paced the room, his usual calm demeanor visibly shaken. "I ran into someone from Copper Creek in town today. A man named Lawson. He was asking about a young woman and a baby." Abigail's blood ran cold. "Randall Lawson, the banker?" Adam nodded. "Said he had unfinished business with you, something about debts owed." "He's lying," Abigail said vehemently. "James may have owed him money, but our home wasn't collateral. Lawson fabricated that claim after James died, knowing I had no way to dispute it." "I believe you," Adam assured her, "but Lawson seems determined. Said he'd be coming out this way tomorrow to discuss the matter properly." Fear and anger warred within Abigail. "I have nothing to discuss with that man. He took everything I had." "Not everything," Adam said quietly, "and he won't take anything more. I promise you that. You don't understand. Randall Lawson has influence. If he decides to make trouble, let him try," Adam interrupted, a hardness entering his voice that Abigail had never heard before. "This is my land, and you're under my protection now." The possessiveness in his tone stirred something in Abigail, not fear, as it might have once, but a strange warmth. Still, she couldn't allow Adam to risk himself or his reputation for her. "I appreciate that, Adam, truly, but perhaps it would be better if Sarah and I moved on. I never intended to bring my problems to your doorstep." "Is that what you want? To leave?" The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. "No," Abigail admitted, the truth slipping out before she could stop it. "But I won't be the cause of trouble for you and Mary. You've been too good to us." Adam crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping just short of reaching for her. "Abigail, listen to me. In these past months, you and Sarah have brought something to this house that was missing for a long time. Joy. Purpose beyond just surviving. If you leave because of a man like Lawson—" He shook his head, unable to complete the thought. "What are you saying, Adam?" He looked at her then with such openness that it took her breath away. "I'm saying I care about what happens to you, to Sarah, more than I thought possible." The confession hung between them, filling the room with unspoken possibilities. Before Abigail could respond, the door opened and Mary returned with Sarah, the child's cheeks rosy from the outdoor air. "Sorry to interrupt," Mary said, her gaze moving between them curiously. "But someone's coming up the road, riding hard." Adam's expression hardened. Too soon to be Lawson. He moved to the window, peering out at the approaching rider. "It's Hank. Something's wrong." He strode outside to meet his ranch hand, Abigail and Mary following with Sarah. Hank pulled his lathered horse to a stop, his face streaked with dust and blood. "Rustlers!" he gasped. "Hit the north pasture. Tom's holding them off, but there's at least 6 of them." Adam was already moving toward the barn. "Get inside," he ordered over his shoulder. "All of you, bar the doors." "Adam, wait," Abigail called, but he was already mounting his horse, rifle in hand. "Hank, stay with them," Adam commanded before galloping away, leaving Abigail standing in the yard with Sarah clutched to her chest, fear gripping her heart. The hours that followed were the longest of Abigail's life. Mary kept busy preparing bandages and medicinal tinctures, grimly practical in her assessment that they would likely be needed. Hank stationed himself by the window, his own rifle ready. Abigail paced, trying to keep Sarah calm, while her mind conjured increasingly horrific scenarios. It was well past midnight when they heard horses approaching. Hank peered cautiously through the curtains, then let out a relieved breath. "It's them!" Abigail rushed to the door as Adam and Tom entered, both men battered and exhausted but alive. Tom's arm was wrapped in a makeshift bandage, and Adam sported a cut above his eye, but neither injury appeared life-threatening. "What happened?" Mary demanded, already examining Tom's wounded arm. "They were professionals," Adam said grimly. "Knew exactly which pasture had our prime breeding stock. We managed to drive them off, but they got away with 3 of our best bulls." "They weren't just any rustlers," Tom added, wincing as Mary cleaned his wound. "They were Lawson's men." Abigail gasped. "How do you know?" "One of them called another by name. I recognized him from when I delivered that lumber to Copper Creek last year. Works for Lawson's outfit." Adam's gaze met Abigail's across the room. "Too much of a coincidence? Lawson asks about you in town, then his men hit my ranch the same day?" "He's sending a message," Abigail realized, sickened by the thought. "This is my fault." "No," Adam said firmly. "This is Lawson's doing, not yours." "But he's targeting you because of me," Abigail insisted. "Those bulls represent a significant loss for the ranch. I can't let this continue." "What are you suggesting?" Adam asked, his tone wary. "I need to face him. Settle this once and for all." "Absolutely not," Adam and Mary said in unison. "Abigail," Adam continued more softly, "men like Lawson don't operate by rules or reason. Whatever he claims you owe, it's just a pretext." "Then what do you suggest? Wait for him to steal more of your cattle, burn down your barn, harm your sister?" Abigail's voice rose with each question, Sarah stirring restlessly in her arms. Adam looked to Mary, some silent communication passing between them. "We need to know exactly what we're dealing with," he said finally. "Tomorrow, I'll ride into Meadow Springs, send a telegram to the marshal in Copper Creek. If Lawson has been operating outside the law, there may be others willing to testify against him now." "And if there aren't?" Abigail asked. "Then we face him together," Adam replied, his voice leaving no room for argument. "But not tonight. Tonight, we rest and prepare." The following morning, Adam left for Meadow Springs as planned, but not before reinforcing his instructions that no one was to leave the house and no strangers were to be admitted. Hank and Tom would take shifts guarding the property, with Mary's loaded shotgun as additional protection. "I'll be back before sundown," Adam promised Abigail as he mounted his horse. "Lock the door behind me." The day stretched endlessly. Abigail tried to occupy herself with household tasks, but her mind kept returning to the danger she'd brought to the Xavier's door. By mid-afternoon, Sarah had grown fussy, perhaps sensing the tension in the house. "Let me take her for a bit," Mary offered. "You look like you could use some rest yourself." Gratefully, Abigail handed over the baby and retreated to her room, though sleep eluded her. She found herself at the window, staring out at the road, willing Adam to appear. The sound of approaching horses made her heart leap, but when she looked out, her blood ran cold. 3 riders were approaching the house, and none was Adam. At their head was a portly man in a fine suit and bowler hat, Randall Lawson. Abigail ran downstairs. "Mary, they're here!" Mary had already seen them through the front window, Sarah balanced on her hip and the shotgun in her free hand. "Stay inside," she ordered. "Hank's out by the north field. Tom's in the barn, but he'll have seen them." Lawson and his men stopped in the yard, staying mounted. "Hello, the house," Lawson called, his voice carrying the false joviality that Abigail remembered all too well. "I believe you have something of mine inside." Mary handed Sarah to Abigail and moved to the door, opening it just enough to call out, "This is Xavier property. State your business or leave." "My business is with Abigail Foster," Lawson replied. "Send her out, and we'll be on our way." "There's no one here by that name," Mary lied smoothly. Lawson's false smile faded. "Don't play games with me, girl. We know she's there, her and the bastard child." Abigail felt anger overtake her fear. Handing Sarah back to Mary, she moved to the door. "Stay here," she whispered. "I need to end this." "Abigail, no!" Mary hissed. But Abigail was already stepping onto the porch, facing her tormentor. "I'm here, Randall," she called. "Let's discuss this like civilized people." Lawson's smile returned, predatory now. "Abigail, my dear, you've led me on quite a chase." "What do you want?" she demanded. "You've already taken my home, my possessions. What more could you possibly claim from me?" "Why, compensation for my troubles, of course." Lawson dismounted, adjusting his suit as he approached the porch steps. "You disappeared without settling James's debts. That's not very honorable, is it?" "Those weren't my debts, and you know it," Abigail retorted. "James never put our home up as collateral. You forged those documents after he died." Lawson's expression hardened. "Careful with your accusations, my dear. They could be considered slanderous." He glanced at his men, who had also dismounted and were flanking him. "Now, I'm prepared to be reasonable. Come back to Copper Creek with me, work at my establishment until the debt is paid, and we'll consider the matter closed." Abigail knew exactly what kind of work Lawson was suggesting. "I would rather die," she said coldly. "That can be arranged," one of Lawson's men muttered, hand moving to his gun. The click of a rifle being cocked froze everyone in place. Tom stood at the corner of the house, his weapon trained on the men. "I suggest you gentlemen reconsider your position," he said calmly. Lawson didn't appear concerned. "You're outnumbered, old man, and this doesn't concern you." "It concerns everyone at the Xavier Ranch," came another voice as Hank emerged from the barn, his own rifle raised. "And I believe that makes it 3 against 3, not counting the lady with the shotgun in the doorway." The standoff might have ended there, with Lawson and his men outnumbered and outmaneuvered had fate not intervened. Sarah, frightened by the tension, began to wail inside the house. The sound distracted Tom for just an instant, enough for one of Lawson's men to draw and fire, hitting the ranch hand in the shoulder and sending him sprawling. Chaos erupted. Hank fired, dropping one of Lawson's men. Mary burst from the house, shotgun raised, as Lawson grabbed Abigail, using her as a shield while dragging her toward his horse. "Drop your weapons, or I'll put a bullet in her," Lawson shouted, pressing his revolver to Abigail's temple. Hank hesitated, then lowered his rifle. Mary, torn between protecting Sarah inside and helping Abigail, remained on the porch. Her shotgun still aimed but useless with Abigail in the line of fire. "Smart choice," Lawson sneered, backing toward his horse with Abigail still in his grasp. "Now, Mrs. Foster and I are going to leave. Anyone tries to follow, she dies first, then the baby." Abigail struggled against his grip. "You won't get away with this, Randall." "I already have, my dear," he whispered in her ear, his breath hot and foul. "I always get what I want in the end." The sound of a galloping horse interrupted whatever else Lawson might have said. Adam Xavier appeared at the edge of the property, riding hard toward the house. Seeing the situation, he didn't slow down, but instead urged his mount to greater speed, bearing down on Lawson and Abigail with single-minded determination. Lawson, panicking, fired a wild shot in Adam's direction, missing completely. The distraction was all Abigail needed. She drove her elbow into Lawson's substantial belly, then stomped hard on his instep. As he doubled over, she tore herself from his grasp and dove clear. Adam was upon them in an instant, leaping from his still-moving horse to tackle Lawson to the ground. The banker's revolver discharged into the air as they fell, then skittered away in the dust. Adam's fist connected with Lawson's face once, twice, a third time, each blow carrying years of pent-up fury. "Adam, stop!" Abigail cried, fearing he would kill the man. "He's not worth it." Adam froze, his fist raised for another strike, Lawson bloody and barely conscious beneath him. Slowly he lowered his hand, his breath coming in harsh gasps. You're right, he managed. He's not. Hank had already subdued Lawson's remaining henchmen, while the third lay motionless in the dirt. Mary was tending to Tom, whose wound was painful, but not life-threatening. Adam hauled Lawson to his feet, shoving him against the nearest fence post. Listen carefully, he growled. You will leave this territory and never return. You will forget Abigail Foster exists. If I ever see you within 100 miles of here again, I will end you. Do you understand? Lawson, his face a bloody mess, nodded weakly. Good. Adam turned to Hank. Tie them to their horses. Point them toward the territorial border. Make sure they understand the consequences of turning back. As Hank carried out these instructions, Adam finally turned to Abigail. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice gentle now, eyes searching her face with frantic concern. No, she assured him, though her voice trembled, just shaken. Without warning, Adam pulled her into a fierce embrace, his arms encircling her as if he could shield her from the world itself. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered into her hair. When I saw him holding that gun to your head. Abigail found herself clinging to him, the terror of the past hour giving way to overwhelming relief. You came back just in time. I will always come back for you, Adam vowed, drawing back just enough to meet her gaze. Always. The intensity in his eyes made her heart race for entirely different reasons than fear. Before she could respond, Sarah's continued cries from inside the house broke the moment. I should check on her, Abigail said softly, reluctantly stepping out of Adam's embrace. He nodded, releasing her. Go. I'll help Mary with Tom. The aftermath of the confrontation kept everyone busy well into the evening. The marshal from Meadow Springs arrived, summoned by a telegram Adam had sent before rushing home. Statements were taken, with Tom's and Hank's accounts of the rustling incident adding weight to the charges against Lawson. The banker and his surviving henchmen were taken into custody, their fate now in the hands of the territorial court. It was near midnight by the time the house quieted. Sarah had finally fallen asleep after much fussing, exhausted by the day's events. Tom, his shoulder bandaged and dosed with Mary's strongest pain remedy, was resting in the bunkhouse under Hank's watchful eye. Mary had retired to her room, leaving Adam and Abigail alone by the dying fire. The marshal believes Lawson won't trouble us again, Adam said, breaking the comfortable silence. With multiple witnesses to both the rustling and today's violence, he's facing serious prison time. I can hardly believe it's over, Abigail murmured. For so long, I've been running, looking over my shoulder. Adam studied her in the firelight. And now? What will you do now, Abigail? The question hung between them, weighted with unspoken possibilities. Abigail took a deep breath, gathering her courage. That depends. On what? On whether there's still a place for Sarah and me here. Adam's expression softened, hope flickering in his eyes. There will always be a place for you here, if that's what you want. And what do you want, Adam? Abigail asked, her heart pounding in her chest. Adam set aside his coffee mug and moved to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. I want you to stay, not as my housekeeper or my sister's companion, but as... He hesitated, then continued with quiet certainty. As my wife, if you'll have me. The proposal, so simply stated yet so profound, took Abigail's breath away. Adam, Before you answer, he interrupted gently, I need you to know something. I'm not offering out of pity or obligation. These past months, watching you care for Sarah, seeing your strength and your kindness, I've fallen in love with you, Abigail Foster. Deeply, completely in love. And that little girl of yours, I already think of her as my own. Tears welled in Abigail's eyes. Adam, there's so much you don't know about me, about my past. I know all I need to know, he assured her. The past is just that past. I'm interested in our future. Our future, Abigail repeated, the words feeling right on her tongue. Adam, I've been afraid to admit it, even to myself, but I love you too. I have for quite some time. Joy transformed Adam's face, making him appear younger, unburdened. Then say yes, he urged. Be my wife. Let me be a father to Sarah. Yes, Abigail whispered, and then louder. Yes, I'll marry you, Adam Xavier. Adam surged forward, capturing her lips in a kiss that spoke of promise and passion and a future brighter than either had dared to imagine. When they finally parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I should probably ask Sarah's permission too," he said with a small smile. Abigail laughed, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "She already adores you. I think her approval is assured." As if on cue, Sarah's sleepy cry came from the bedroom. Adam stood, pulling Abigail to her feet with him. "May I?" he asked. Together they entered the small bedroom where Sarah lay in her cradle, her little face scrunched in momentary discomfort. Adam lifted her with practiced gentleness, cradling her against his broad chest. "There now, little one," he murmured, his deep voice immediately soothing the child. "Everything's all right. I've got you." Abigail watched, her heart full to bursting, as Sarah settled contentedly in Adam's arms, her tiny hand curling around his finger with instinctive trust. The sight of them together, this strong, good man and her precious daughter, brought fresh tears to her eyes. Adam looked up, catching her gaze. Without a word, he extended his free arm, inviting her into their embrace. As Abigail stepped into the circle of his arms, Sarah nestled between them. She felt the last of her fears melting away. "Family," Adam whispered, the word a vow and a blessing all at once. "This is what matters. This is worth fighting for." In that moment, surrounded by love she'd thought forever beyond her reach, Abigail knew she had finally found her home. The wedding took place 3 weeks later on the Xavier Ranch, a simple ceremony attended by neighbors, ranch hands, and a few townspeople from Meadow Springs, who had come to respect the Xaviers over the years. Mary had outdone herself decorating the house with wildflowers and ribbons, while Hank and Tom had constructed an arbor of aspen branches under which the vows would be exchanged. Abigail wore a dress of pale blue, not white, she had insisted, as this was a beginning rather than a first. The dress had been Mary's gift, sewn by her own hands with help from the seamstress in Meadow Springs. Sarah, now nearly 10 months old and just beginning to stand with assistance, wore a matching dress and crown of tiny daisies. "You look beautiful," Mary said, adjusting the simple veil in Abigail's hair. "Adam won't know what hit him." "I'm the one who can hardly believe this is happening," Abigail admitted. "A year ago, I was desperate and alone. Now you're about to become my sister," Mary finished with a warm smile, "and I couldn't be happier about it." The ceremony itself was brief but heartfelt. Abigail would always remember the look on Adam's face as she walked toward him, Sarah in her arms, a look of such profound love and gratitude that it nearly brought her to her knees. When it came time for the vows, Adam surprised her by kneeling before them both, taking Abigail's hand and then Sarah's tiny one. "I make this promise to both of you," he said, his voice carrying clearly to all assembled, "to love, protect, and cherish you all the days of my life. You are my family now, and there is no greater blessing I could ask for." There wasn't a dry eye among the witnesses as Adam rose to kiss his bride and then place a tender kiss on Sarah's forehead. The child responded with delighted laughter, reaching for Adam with complete trust and affection. The celebration continued well into the evening with feasting, dancing, and more genuine good wishes than Abigail had experienced in her entire life. As the sun began to set, casting the ranch in golden light, she found herself watching Adam across the yard as he spoke with some of the neighboring ranchers. Sarah perched comfortably in his arms as if she'd always belonged there. Mary appeared at Abigail's side, following her gaze. "He's happier than I've ever seen him," she observed. "You both deserve this, you know." "Sometimes I still can't believe it," Abigail confessed, "that I could find such joy after so much pain." "That's the way of life out here," Mary replied philosophically. "Hardship and beauty side by side. The trick is recognizing the beauty when it comes." As the last guest departed and twilight deepened into night, Adam found Abigail on the porch, gazing up at the emerging stars. Sarah had finally succumbed to exhaustion and was sleeping peacefully in the nursery that Adam and the ranch hands had built, adjoining the main bedroom, close enough for comfort, but providing the newlyweds with precious privacy. "Mrs. Xavier," Adam greeted her, his voice warm with affection and something more intimate. "May I join you?" Abigail smiled, still getting used to her new name. "I would be disappointed if you didn't, Mr. Xavier." He settled beside her on the porch swing, his arm naturally finding its place around her shoulders. For a long moment, they simply sat together, content in their shared silence. "What are you thinking about?" Adam finally asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "The future," Abigail replied honestly. "Our future. Sometimes I worry that this happiness can't last, that something will come along to take it away." Adam turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Listen to me, Abigail Xavier. Life will bring challenges, droughts, harsh winters, illness, all the trials that come with ranching in this territory. But nothing will take away what we've built together. This family is stronger than any storm that might come our way." His certainty was contagious, washing away her momentary doubt. "How did I get so fortunate as to find you?" "I ask myself the same question every day," Adam replied, his smile warming her from within. "Now, wife, I believe it's time I showed you just how fortunate we both are." He stood, offering his hand with an unmistakable invitation in his eyes. Abigail placed her hand in his, allowing him to lead her into their home, their future with love and trust, lighting every step. 1 year later, Abigail sat in the same porch swing, nursing her newborn son, while watching Adam play with Sarah in the yard. At nearly 2 years old, Sarah was a bundle of energy, her dark curls bouncing as she raced around her father, squealing with delight as he pretended he couldn't catch her. The ranch had prospered under Adam's careful management, aided by Abigail's sharp mind for figures and business. They'd expanded the cattle operation, added 2 new hands to help with the increased workload, and even started a modest horse breeding program that was already gaining attention throughout the territory. Mary had found her own happiness, courting and eventually marrying the new schoolteacher in Meadow Springs, though she still visited the ranch regularly, especially since the birth of little James, Adam Xavier, 6 weeks earlier. "Mama," Sarah called, breaking free from her game to run toward the porch. "Baby awake?" "Yes, sweetheart," Abigail answered, adjusting her shawl to cover herself as James finished nursing. "Would you like to sit with us?" Sarah clambered onto the swing, with surprising grace for a toddler, peering curiously at her brother's face. "He smile at me," she announced proudly. "Because he loves his big sister," Adam said, joining them on the porch. He dropped a kiss on Abigail's forehead before sitting beside her, his arm automatically encircling both her and Sarah. As James dozed off, milk-drunk and content, Abigail leaned into her husband's embrace, overwhelmed by the simple perfection of the moment. "I never thought I could be this happy," she confessed, not for the first time. "You deserve every bit of it," Adam assured her, his voice thick with emotion. "You and these children are the greatest gifts of my life." Sarah, not understanding the significance of the conversation, but recognizing the love in her parents' voices, snuggled closer. "Love you, Papa. Love you, Mama." "We love you too, little one," Adam replied, his hand gently stroking her dark curls. "More than you'll ever know." As the sun began its descent behind the distant mountains, painting the land in hues of gold and amber, Abigail thought back to that desperate day on the trail, when she'd believed no man would ever accept her and her child. How wrong she had been. In Adam Xavier, she had found not just acceptance, but a love so complete it had healed wounds she hadn't even known she carried. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked softly, echoing his question from their wedding night. Abigail smiled, watching as Sarah's eyelids grew heavy, the child fighting sleep even as she curled more securely against her father's side. James slumbered peacefully in her arms, his tiny hand wrapped around her finger with absolute trust. "I'm thinking that sometimes life gives us exactly what we need, even when it's not what we thought we wanted," she answered. "I'm thinking that home isn't a place but the people who love us, and I'm thinking that I am precisely where I'm meant to be." Adam's kiss was gentle, a promise renewed. "As am I, my love, as am I." As twilight descended on the Xavier Ranch, the small family remained on the porch, wrapped in love and contentment, their future stretching before them as vast and promising as the western sky above. For Abigail, who had once known only uncertainty and fear, there was now only gratitude for the man who had knelt before her and her child, and with one word family changed their lives forever.